Hello, everyone. Today I want to talk about peak load pricing. Sushi restaurant menus sometimes say, market price, on their menus. The popular items that are not available very often are priced high. In contrast, rush hour train fares are often the same as regular fares or lower, depending on your commuter pass. Considering how hard it is during rush hour, high fares are no joke, but it's a little odd to be cheap when you can't get a seat. How is this different from sushi? Technically, the widespread use of transportation IC cards makes it possible to set rail fares at market value. Let's consider how to set the market value of rail fares. First, let's look at the current situation of commuter rush hour. The Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism, MLIT, has published a survey of commuter train congestion in the three major metropolitan areas. The following illustration is a picture of the congestion rate. Does it match your actual experience? How crowded are the commuter trains you take? Since telecommuting has become more common since the corona disaster, and the railroad companies have invested enormous amounts of time and effort in increasing their capacity, the severity of rush hour congestion is likely to change over time. Let us look at the changes in congestion rates in the three major metropolitan areas based on the same survey results from the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism. First, let's look at the Tokyo area. This graph shows how the relative traffic capacity and congestion rate have changed over time, with FY 1975 as 100. The congestion rate, which was around 160%-170% before Corona, has fallen to 108% in the most recent year, 2021. Surprisingly, the average congestion rate was over 200% until the beginning of the Heisei era. In response, the railroad companies have worked to increase their transportation capacity. As a result, the transportation capacity has increased about 1.7 times compared with FY 1975. If the number of passengers does not return to the post-corona era, how to maintain and manage the facilities is likely to become an issue. As for the Osaka area, since the number of passengers transported has been on a downward trend, the congestion rate will remain lower than in the Tokyo and Nagoya areas. The latest transport capacity index is 60 in 2020 and 61 in 2021. Which means that the number of passengers transported is lower than in FY 1975. Although some may have an image of a car-oriented society, the Nagoya area has also been investing in expanding transportation capacity. The recovery trend in the number of transportation workers following the corona disaster also makes the strongest impression. Now, if we look again at the problem of commuter traffic, we can see that there is a mismatch between supply and demand. Demand is concentrated for an hour or two in the morning, and transportation capacity and supply do not expand overnight. Once supply capacity expands, it will not be able to respond smoothly when demand drops, as in the case of the corona disaster, and the company will end up with excess supply capacity. In addition, those who do not use the facilities during peak hours bear part of the cost of unnecessary facilities. What are the possible countermeasures? On the supply side, one possible solution is to invest in expanding transport capacity, as has been done in the past. However, this is time-consuming and expensive, and if demand declines due to the spread of telecommuting and staggered commuting after the corona disaster, it would be considered excess capacity. In addition, there may be cases where it is physically difficult to acquire land for the facility. Therefore, demand-side measures will be needed. Efforts have been made to encourage staggered commutes, issue staggered vouchers with higher discounts during off-peak hours, and offer vouchers or points to riders who travel during off-peak hours. A smart demand-side measure is peak load pricing. This involves charging higher fares during peak periods in proportion to the level of congestion, and lower fares during off-peak periods. Peak users may feel that it is a joke to raise fares when the service is of low quality and they are regular customers. However, if those who say, if it's cheaper, I'll avoid the peak, actively avoid the peak, peak congestion will decrease and peak fares will decrease accordingly in the medium to long term. Currently, people are willing to put up with the hardship because they don't have to pay extra money, but they don't want to be tired for just to get to and from work. In addition, for those who do not normally use the system during peak hours, the current transportation capacity is tailored to peak hours, and the current fares that reflect this are too high. Therefore, if peak load pricing is implemented, fares will be lower than they are today. The cost of the investment in increased capacity would be paid for by the revenue from the peak hour surcharge. What do you think? This is a win-win situation for the majority of people, but it has been difficult to gain acceptance. This may be the flip side of the fact that the rush hour commute is so hard. However, times may be changing, and Junior East has applied to the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism to introduce an off-peak commuter pass from March 2023. The off-peak commuter pass will not be available during weekday morning rush hours, but the price will be reduced by about 10%. On the other hand, the price of the regular commuter pass will increase slightly. This is a groundbreaking application of peak load pricing. If fares can be changed in real time according to congestion, the time may come when rail fares will be priced at market value, just like sushi. Today's article in Economics in Your Life focused on congestion pricing. See you again. Thanks for watching.